Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with you today. Thank you for joining me here at Indianapolis. This is Saturday. I think it's Saturday, maybe Sunday. No, it's Saturday. And appreciate you being here. A lot going on. We just talked to our team, did to a ton of offensive linemen here at the combine and really had a great discussion with all of them. Excuse me. Just breaking down their thoughts, their game, what are some impressions they had from the Raiders. We're going to get into all of that tomorrow because today is really going to be all talk about the Raiders. We're going to and quarterback position, Raiders and quarterback. So let's get started. The Matthew Stafford incident, not incident, situation to me is fascinating. Looking at social media, there's a lot of people who were extremely unhappy. Some of them wanted to blame the media for reporting the truth. I get that. I understand. We're the ones that they can see, so no big deal. Some were not some. A lot were angry with Tom Brady and the Raiders. I saw a lot of this is what happens when you suck. I saw a lot of people saying that the Raiders got played. Um, I would like to address all of that. I have known Matthew Stafford a long time. That's no secret on this podcast. I can tell you that Matthew Stafford is a lot of things. He's not disingenuous and he's not a manipulator nor a liar. And he took less money to stay there. He did not play the Rams. There was a rift in this relationship that was not a financial rift, but there was a rift in the relationship. I believe initially, without getting into detail, it was more of a rift from parts of the Rams to Matthew, and I think it it then bothered him that there was, because that's not the way he operates. He's a consummate teammate and a professional and a great guy. Having said that, uh, I talked about in yesterday's podcast, they were going to meet yesterday at some point, and you never know what happens when people get together. And there's a Bible verse I love, and I'm not preaching at you. This is, "Come, let us reason together." And something happens when people quit talking to everyone else and just sit down and talk things through. And they were able to do that. And I want to make a couple of statements. I don't work for the Raiders. My credentials are not predicated on speaking highly of the Raiders. That would not be truthful to you. I'm a member of the Pro Football Writers Association. I'm a professional at this. And I don't carry the water of the franchise. Having said that, I don't see where anyone can blame Tom Brady for anything here. The Raiders offered the most money. I can tell you, and this is not speculative, the Raiders offered him $100 million for 2 years. The rate $50 million a year. The Raiders wanted him. I think he was the best option for them of a veteran quarterback. So whoever they get next, I'm sure that they'll get somebody that they're going to believe in, and I certainly trust them more than me. But I don't believe they'll get anybody that would have fit better than Matthew Stafford. Doesn't mean they won't find somebody that fits. He was the right choice, and the Raiders offered the most money. On top of offering the most money, it's a no income tax state. It was very close to LA, so his family could have stayed there, but they would have not been together, which is incredibly important to Matthew. Incredibly important. He is a tremendous father and a great guy. And I know that for a lot of people, this is difficult to understand, but there can come a place in your life where you've made so much money that it's just not about money. And I think a lot of people can be there without having millions in the bank, where they understand that life is about a lot more than money. And at the end of the day, they love where they live and the school and the life that Kelly and the kids have. And that was the decision that he made. If I thought the Raiders were wrong here, okay, I think you can blame the Raiders for Ben Johnson. I think the Raiders did better off with Pete Carroll than Ben Johnson. But there is, you can blame the Raiders for Ben Johnson. And I have zero problems with that. But I do have a problem when people are blaming Tom or the Raiders organization when this did not come down to the most money. You know, you always see players will say it's not about the money. Then they take the highest paid plays and people rip them. This was Matthew deciding staying in California, even for less money, was what was best for his family if he wanted to continue to play football. And so I support him 100%. He's a wonderful man. He's just a terrific person, which I know if you're just tuning in for football, you don't care, but I do. And he didn't play the team. He was genuinely interested in coming here. But when they sat down and talked, and the Rams were very forthright and very humble, and he is by nature, I think it was just an opportunity where they were able to heal a relationship, and it didn't work out. And I think when you're a Raider fan and you're Raider Nation or a media member covering the Raiders like I am, you have the greatest quarterback to ever play the game of football, who is a terrific business mind with a Hall of Fame coach and a general manager who I've known for 20 years and can tell you is as keen of an evaluator as there is. I think the Raiders are absolutely disappointed they didn't get Matthew, but there is zero fear or consternation. They continue to roll forward. They're the freaking Raiders. And this is a franchise that I know a lot of people are upset over the last 20 years, but you're never going to have a forward focus if you keep living life in the rearview mirror. And I think that if you are a reasonable person, you can give this new regime the chance and get on board because they all have proven track records. If Ben Johnson was here and you were all jacked up through the roof, I'd be like, okay, I guess he's a coach that's never done it. But you have a new minority owner and a future Hall of Fame coach with proven track records in the NFL. There's a lot there. Now, I believe in John Spytek. I think he's going to be really good. So do people around the NFL. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But at the end of the day, I, even if you want to say, okay, he's a rookie, you can question what he's going to become because he's never sat in the chair. That's a fair argument. But this is an organization that there's no fear, there's no consternation, there's no panic. They're moving forward. And I just think that the reality is Matthew Stafford, the Raiders did everything. I can tell you that if Matthew Stafford did not return to LA, he would have come to Las Vegas. Period. And it didn't work out. Sometimes that happens and there's nobody to blame. Obviously, the Raiders lose him as a quarterback and they let one go in Desmond Ridder. There's no surprise there. Nobody, I believe, connected to the franchise felt like Ridder was going to be any part of the equation. So Desmond Ridder is now gone. Let's talk about Milton, the quarterback. He was a 6th-round pick last year by New England Patriots. Then there is a potential guy there if the Raiders look to trade. You may remember we told you at the Super Bowl that the talk was trade. We had begun to hear about the Matthew Stafford and JJ McCarthy. Obviously, if they had decided to sign Sam Darnold long term, Milton is now a guy we're hearing from NFL people. I was at dinner last night with an NFL executive who told me he thought that was intriguing. I asked him, "Do you think the Raiders are considering Milton?" And he told me I'd rather not answer that. So you can read that however you want, but that's a name that came up. And I think it's a legitimate name. I've heard it from a couple places for the Raiders to look at. I'd like to talk to you real quick. I think the Raiders will look at Russell Wilson. I do not believe, and I could be 100% wrong here, but I do not believe anything there is imminent. But I was told by 2 different people that they thought the Raiders would kick the tires there as a bridge guy. I don't know how that would work out. I really sincerely don't. But if this group, along with Chip Kelly, I can't believe I didn't remember Chip Kelly. If this group, I mean, you got Tom Brady, John Spytek, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, if they think they can get Russell Wilson to do what they need great. If they watch the film and think they can work within his mobility or limited now, great. I'm not going to argue with that. You say, well, you're a fan then. No, I'm not. I'm just going to trust the people that have the Lombardis. It's called keeping receipts. As the kids would say, I have a 19-year-old son who's a sophomore in college, and he likes to say, and that's just now. So I think Russ is certainly a possibility. Certainly. Now let's talk about Sam Darnold for a minute. Sam Darnold, I've already told you this before. People who I know very close to the situation with Sam say he's willing to take more money for a long-term deal. Right? That's interesting. If he gets a long-term deal, then that puts JJ McCarthy possibly on the trading block. Possibly. I think the Raiders would jump at JJ McCarthy. Would jump at him. But if he just signs a franchise tag, then I don't think they let JJ go at all. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Are they able to get a long-term deal with Sam, who's willing to give a discount on a long-term deal, or do they have to go the franchise? So keep your eye on that. That's going to be very fascinating about what happens with JJ McCarthy. I'd like to talk to you about Justin Fields. Now, here at the Combine, the general consensus is in feeling is that Fields is going to return to Pittsburgh. But I want to use Robert Spillane for an example, because when you look at Robert Spillane, there are a ton of NFL teams that want him. There's a ton of NFL teams that are interested in Trayvon Merrick, and there are several teams interested in Adam Butler. Okay, but let's use Spilly because Spills is the guy that, I mean, I'm well into the double digits of teams ask me, are the Raiders going to resign him? I said, they're absolutely, they're going to make every effort to re-sign him. And I told them, because they know that I know him and have known him a long time, he wants to be in Vegas. But here's what happens. And let me just give you an example. I am not saying this has happened. I'm just saying this does happen. So let's say Team A decides, man, we really want Spills. And they privately, even though it's tampering, say to Spills' people, hey, before you sign a deal with the Raiders, you need to tell me what it is, and I'll let you know if we'll beat it. That's how that works. Now, at the same time, I know Spills wants to come back. So let's keep our eye on that. I think that deal will get done. I just think so, just because both parties want it so badly. And I think that deal will get done. But that's my point with when you look at a Sam Darnold. Okay, if they're going to franchise him, he has no say. But when you go to Justin Fields, they're not going to franchise him. They would want to do a long-term deal potentially. So if a team goes to Justin Fields' people and says, listen, tell us what the Steelers are willing to pay you, and we'll tell you what we're willing to pay you before you sign it. And you may say, well, that's against the rules. Yeah, and it happens all the time. Do I think the Raiders would do it? No. Do I think the other 31 teams would? Yes. I hope you caught the sarcasm there. But that's how it works. It's just the reality. It's living in Realville. And so do I think that Justin Fields, I do not believe, and I talked with somebody last night that the Raiders at this, well, that was last night, so things could have changed overnight. But I know last night there was no definitive answer. I think they were in discussions. I don't think there was any panic, but I don't think there was any, what are we going to do at all? But they may now have come up with a point, but they're working towards it. Let's talk about uh, Gray Zabel, the defensive lineman, for a minute. Actually, let's just take a minute. I'm going to finish talking. The quarterback interviews all went on. All of the quarterback interviews have been posted. We've got them all up there for you to watch. I really hope you take advantage of that. I really hope you take advantage of that. I think you're going to like it a lot. So you can see their entire interviews. Some of them came off extremely well. Extremely well. Some came off extremely polished. Some did not. I'll let you watch them. You make your own decisions. I will tell you there was one very high profile athlete here yesterday who everybody was high on, every team, who did not have a good podium interview time. And I think he came off as incredibly arrogant. And I had two executives last night saying that was really disappointing. We had never seen that side of the kid. And it was, do I think the kid's going to take a major fall? No, he's too talented. But I think it hurt him. I think it hurt him. Um, one of the executives who told me that there had been rumors that his team was trying to trade up to get this guy. He and I did not discuss that. It was I would never discuss with him about his team like that. Um, but based upon the way he talked about it, I don't think there's any chance they would move up. It just was disappointing. So watch those quarterbacks. I think you'll be fascinated. Let's talk a little bit. Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman who we've written extensively about. He's from North Dakota State. He went to the Senior Bowl, was the best offensive lineman. He can play all five positions, and this guy is a dominant player. Dominant. Uh, his interview today, he owned it. We're going to have all that interview for you probably on Monday. But he dominated it, crushed it, and was phenomenal. And that young man, his stock is just skyrocketing. He made himself a lot of money at the Senior Bowl and made a ton of money here. Uh, I'm trying to remember. I didn't have one executive I talked to that when we talked offensive linemen, Zabel did his name didn't touch their lips. Pretty phenomenal. Um, Obviously you're aware now the Raiders would trade Michael Mayer. I expect that to get done. Um, Nothing to say about it. Good kid. I like the kid. Extremely talented. And I think the possibility of maybe a change of scenery would be pretty good for him. Wish him nothing but the best. He's a wonderful kid. And if they were to keep him, I'd be thrilled for him in the Raiders. But I understand, and that's where it's at. He's out there and he's available. Last thing I want to get to, and then I'm going to let you go because we got a lot going on. This is my day 3 recap. I'm going to have my last one tomorrow. Talking to all the recruits who talked to the Raiders. Now, you may remember the first day I had prospects. I had a prospect tell me that he was shocked because when he got into the meeting, the Raiders wanted to talk about him, his personality. They didn't really want to talk football. That was a recurring theme from everybody that talked to the Raiders. But there was one other thing that really stood out. And I know Raider Nation will go crazy for this, and you should. But Gray Zabel talked about it from the podium, and so I'm going to talk about it right now. That he loved that the Raiders are in a win now mentality. They are not in we're rebuilding. And I've been telling you all along, this is not a rebuild, it's a reload. And the Raiders, when they met with prospects, made it clear, are you looking to come in and grow into the NFL? Or are you looking to come in and compete right now? Because we're in it to win right now. If you think you're coming in to sit for 3 years and go somewhere, do you want to win now? Are you ready to compete now? They really wanted to get to that mentality. I will tell you, and even back when Gru was here, this wasn't as much the case. But people were mesmerized, these kids, to be around Pete Carroll. Multiple said, couldn't believe it. I'm sitting in the freaking room with Pete Carroll. Man, I'm in the room with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's in the room. And I thought that was interesting. He brings a lot of cred to the Raiders. I do not believe, and not because you're stupid. I just don't believe people, because if you're not in this world, in this bubble like I am, I don't think you can see it. You can look at somebody and say, boy, that's a great guy, but until you live in the home with them, you don't know. You can look at outside the bubble and with perception, and perception is usually pretty accurate, not 100%, but pretty accurate. But when you're in this bubble, when you see top flight athletes, you know, everywhere Pete goes, it's just like, I mean, even NFL people stop, want to shake his hand, congratulate him. Great job being with the Raiders. Great move by the Raiders. Pete is so loved by the National Football League. Now, outside of the bubble, it's the same thing. What was unique to me was outside the bubble, John Spytek can walk down the road, and most people don't know who John Spytek is, just because he, has not been the leader of a franchise. And now in Ann Arbor, people know who he is. He's a former football player, but I think you understand what I'm saying. But in the NFL bubble, it was like Pete Carroll. Everybody wanted to talk to uh, John Spytek. And which is for a guy his age, getting his first shot, it was really unique. Now, I take a little bit of pride in that because I, covered him when he was a kid intern with the Lions 20 years ago. And I told you how, Bill Keenish, Sheldon White, who interviewed for the Raiders GM job, Millen, but how he was called a whiz kid um, by Bill Keenish, but highly respected by Millen, highly respected by Sheldon, greatly respected. But to see the respect, I think it's really cool to see the respect. And of course, Tom Brady is league royalty. And so, and I've told you, among owners, Mark Davis, his respect level is growing as well. But just to see the respect the Raiders have in this building is not something that I have seen in my previous 6 years covering the Raiders. This is my sixth covering them. But in my other years covering this team, I hadn't seen it before. In my other years covering the NFL. So I thought that was very interesting. Now, you know what? You don't want to be liked. You want to be feared. You want to win. And I get all of that. But it's still my job to present to you the changing narrative, the changing, uh, or I hate the word aura, but the changing perception. Thank you. Uh, View of the Raiders. And I think it's fascinating. So a lot of good stuff going on. We're bringing you tons of information. I hope you're checking it out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I just want you to know that we appreciate you and we're grateful for you. So from Indianapolis at the Combine, God bless every one of you. Have a wonderful day.